It's rare in this day and age of modern horror that movies are able to make me feel unsettled while watching them. Thankfully, The First Omen was able to do just that on more than one occasion. Let's discuss.
I watch so you don't have to.
Before I get started, I'd like to kindly ask that you hit the like button, and please subscribe to the channel for more content just like this.
What are you waiting for, huh? What are you waiting for?
The First Omen follows a young woman who starts to question her own faith when she uncovers a terrifying conspiracy to bring about the birth of evil incarnate in Rome. So I'm going to be very clear, when it comes to The Omen as a franchise, I can't say that it's something that I'm all that familiar with. In fact, I would say I have a general knowledge of the subject and nothing more, so take that into consideration as you watch this review. All indications pointed to this being a prequel to the 1976 original. It's weird that we live in a world now where prequels feel fresh to me. Mostly because the legacy sequel thing has been done to death, especially in horror, and the results have been less than impressive.
Not impressed.
So I give the filmmakers and the studio some props for not following tired trends in the genre and kind of doing their own thing. To me, The First Omen is to The Omen what The Exorcist Believer should have been and could have been to the original Exorcist. Yes, this movie is directly tied to and directly leads into the original film, but it's how they do it that's impressive. Honestly, if this movie had no connection to the original Omen franchise at all, it would still be a good movie. It's able to stand on its own because it's a film first and foremost, and not just another movie. What I mean by that is from very early on, and I'm talking about the opening moments of the film. It sets the tone for the entire story by establishing things like atmosphere and tension. Two things that are unfortunately generally overlooked in modern horror. But to me it is those two things above anything else that makes a horror movie memorable.
It's true.
This is going to be a somewhat weird comparison, but bear with me for a moment. But the general tone of this movie was very reminiscent to Alien 3 to me. Now that might be a turnoff to some people who don't like Alien 3, but I personally love it. You can even make a connection between the two films based on how they approach the subject of religion. What's really interesting to me about The First Omen is that it takes place during a time historically when people are rebelling against societal norms and even rebelling against the church. So they take this very real conflict and wrap a story around it about the birth of the Antichrist. I appreciated the attempt to incorporate real societal unrest in with this movie. And to tie it in even further, that societal unrest directly ties into the church's actions throughout this film. It's just a whole nother layer to this story that I wasn't expecting. Whoa! A lot has been said already about actress Nell Tiger-Free's performance in this film, as Margaret, the main character. But it cannot be understated how good she actually is. We all know that the Academy doesn't typically acknowledge horror films, but this is another one of those instances where they probably should. She just goes through such a wide range of emotions in this film. She simultaneously captures the innocence of her character, while also having a rebellious side to her, and both sides are equally as believable. And in the really trying moments where she is put through the most horrific shit, she knocks it out of the park in those scenes as well. It's nice for once to see horror films elevated by performances, because most of the time, the performances are what hold the movie back. Plus, she has an excellent supporting cast around her. It really feels like the casting director swung for the fences on this film and got some of the best talent they possibly could.
I like it a lot.
As far as the horror elements of the film, a lot of it has to do with its imagery. It's the way that certain things in this film are shot. It could be something as simple as a nun standing on a staircase, all the way to the more obvious stuff like a woman going through the most horrific childbirth possible. It feels like every single shot in this movie is specifically designed to entice some kind of reaction out of you and most of them do. There are a couple of jump scare moments in the film, but they're the good kind of jump scare. The ones that you don't see coming a mile away and actually feel genuine to the moment. There's a couple of birth scenes in this movie, obviously, but there's one in particular that stood out to me. I can't really talk about it because I'm not trying to spoil the movie, but let's just say it made me feel very uncomfortable, like a good horror movie should.
You didn't see that coming.
There were a couple of scenes in the film that I did feel like were dragging along a little bit. I think this movie could definitely be described as a slow burn, which is a type of movie that I enjoy, because it makes me feel like there is a proper build to wherever it is we are heading. And even the payoff in this movie was quite interesting, even if it was somewhat predictable. There are some obvious red herring type things in this movie that are there to throw you off. But if I'm being honest, I never really bought into any of them. I was pretty certain of where this movie was going, and in most aspects, I ended up being right. But I actually don't hold that against the movie, because in this case, I feel like the journey is more important than the destination. I also have to give props to the script of this film. There's very much something to be said about how this movie approaches the concept of religion. It does kind of force you to ask difficult questions about how some people use religion as a tool to control people, and the lengths of which they would go to maintain that control. It's not often that a horror movie gives you these deeper philosophical ideas to chew on. Overall, I was impressed by The First Omen. I think it's a shining beacon of hope in this world where Hollywood is consistently trying to rehash things from the past in the most lazy way possible. It feels like everyone involved took the responsibility of making a prequel to The Omen very seriously. Does it retroactively kind of mess with the ideas in the original and what we know about that story? It does. But it doesn't feel like it's being done in a malicious way like a lot of modern continuations tend to do. The choices made feel organic, and they are more creative than you would expect. As you can tell, even looking past some minor gripes, I generally enjoyed The First Omen. And that's why I'm going to give it the pleased Palpatine.
Good. Good.
Y'all be cool. Shut up.